Hey, good morning. Scott Luton and Greg White with you here on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's live stream. Greg, how are we doing today?
I think we're doing okay. How am I doing? I feel like I may be laggy a little.
Well, we're working through some challenges as we work on all things digital improvement around here. I think you look great, man. You look like $1,000,000.
Thanks, man. Look, I think as Catherine said, the internet just needs to warm up a little bit, and I
I should
believe
say,
that actually happens.
I should say $2,000,000. Inflation and all. But you look great. You look great, and looking forward to a big conversation today, Greg. As you know, it is the Supply Chain Buzz every Monday at 12 noon Eastern Time, where we share some of the leading stories, some of the big movers and shakers across global business. Today, we're going to be discussing a variety of topics and talk about movers and shakers. We got a big special guest joining us around 12:25, Keith Andrey with UPS. Greg,
Yeah,
a titan, huh?
yeah. Well, president of one of the divisions at UPS. So, yes, we better be on our best behavior,
Right.
or mostly I better.
Well, we got a lot that we'll be talking air cargo, we'll be talking friendshoring, and a lot more. So don't miss us. If you've got one eye on email and one eye on the news, make sure you bring them both back here at 12:25 as we bring on our special guest around then. And hey, as always, Greg, we want to hear from folks in the cheap seats, in the sky boxes, whatever we want to call it here today. Maybe the 755 club. Maybe we should
The
we should
Loge
start calling
level,
it.
yes, the club level.
So, folks, drop in your comments throughout the next hour, and we're going to share as many of those as we can get to. Okay, and we're gonna give a few shout outs in just a minute. But Greg, first, I want to hit a couple of quick events, and then we're going to keep driving. How's that sound?
Sounds good. We need Clay to continue his greeting. Welcome all.
Yes,
And what day is it, Clay? Come on.
right. Clay's like a deacon today, huh? He's doing a lot of greeting and showing people where they're sitting and all that good stuff.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, but hey, kidding aside, folks, one of our honorable initiatives around here that we're very passionate about is supporting this initiative here, leveraging logistics for Ukraine. Greg, in the numbers we got last week, these collective efforts with Vector Global Logistics and a variety of partners have sent 325,000 pounds of humanitarian aid to folks in need. This is vetted aid. I mean, they told us exactly what they need and working with a collection of folks to get it where it needs to go. The next planning session is tomorrow, Tuesday, August 9th, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We'd love for you to come. You don't, no obligation to do anything other than just sit in and listen as coordination continues. So y'all check that out tomorrow, August 9th at 11 a.m. And Greg, we've got an upcoming webinar this week too, August 10th. Sustainability and profitability, the ripple effect of shipping less air. So y'all join us for that with our friends Packard and Stored, August 10th. That is Thursday. No, check that. That's Wednesday, August 10th.
Yeah.
We're talking August. Someone changed the dates on August, Greg? No, they've always been. Since the beginning of time, August 10th, Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Time.
Air, the most expensive commodity in supply chain. Worth nothing, right? It still takes up space.
Oh, no kidding. No kidding.
Can't even see it. Doesn't make a noise when it hits the floor.
But we love shipping it. Okay. Well, let's say hello to a few folks, and then we're going to dive into a couple of stories before we welcome in our special guest. Stay tuned for this next hour. It's going to be fast moving and a lot of heavy hitting perspective. So, want to say hello to Jonathan's back with us, the super planner from Louisiana. Greg, I bet he had a great weekend. What you think?
Well, unquestionably, yeah. I hope so. Let's find out.
Jonathan, let us know how your weekend was. Of course, Josh Goody, who holds down the West Coast for us from beautiful Seattle. Josh, how you doing today? Speaking of that upper Northwest, sorry, I had to get my direct geographical bearings. Kyle Garcia is with us, and I believe he's still up in the Oregon area. Kyle, help me out here. Let us know where you're tuned in from, and great to see you here via LinkedIn. Greg, we mentioned the Deacon or the Diesel, whatever we want to refer to Clay here today, making it happen. he's brokenhearted with me after the Braves dropped 4 of 5 games to the Mets.
Not a good weekend. Yeah. What are they, 6.5 back now, right?
Yes. We're closer to the Phillies in third place than we are to Mets in first. But hey,
ouch.
Optimism still abounds. We'll see how the rest of the season.
Scherzer was awesome. Gosh.
Oh, the Mets clearly.
Also, he's one of those pitchers that gets strikes that aren't strikes.
Yes.
Yes. Like Tom Glavine.
No comment. I can't complain. As Braves fans,
right? You can't complain, but the guy never threw a strike in his career.
Catherine, great to have you here. Happy Monday for my warmed up internet, Greg.
Thank you, and thanks for keeping ours warmed up as well.
Gary Smith, the legend. We're all members of the Gary Smith fan club here in Atlanta. Hello, everyone.
Soon to be from the Golden Isles.
That's right. He, it's been a little while since I connected with Gary, but he is a Georgia Tech grad, been doing big things in supply chain for a number of years, been up in New York for quite some time. And it's good to see he's going to be headed back south to St. Simon's Island soon.
I'm sure, just port research. He's not retiring or, dialing it back or anything like that. Port research.
I love it. Helmet. Great. I missed one. Shelly, great to have you back. I've really enjoyed all of your contributions during these live streams. Good morning, she says, from the home of Coors Beer, Colorado, of course, via LinkedIn. Look forward to your perspective today.
Banquet beer.
Yes, the banquet beer. Yes, nice. Helmet.
Whatever that means.
Right. Helmet, great to have you here. Enjoyed your social contributions and, of course, what you share here. Ready for a new episode. I'm trying to sound out his...
Daga, daga, da.
Yes.
Daga, daga, da.
There you go. It almost sounded like Buck Rogers there. But, Helmet, great to have you back. Looking forward to your contributions. Let's see here. Gene Pledger, OGP from North Alabama, is back with us. Good morning to you. I never get this right.
Come on, Doc Holliday.
The Doc Holliday of supply chain. Fred Tolbert is here. It's a hot August day, which means it's a great day to be in supply chain. Fred, great to see you via LinkedIn, and appreciate all the good work you're doing mentoring the now generation in supply chain. T Squared, holding down the fort for us on YouTube. He says, good Monday, folks. Bring on the supply chain management nourishment, and hopefully UPS will have some WorldPort and ATL Super Hub on this one. T Squared, dropping the insider knowledge. We'll see. We'll see if Keith wants to weigh in on some of these things. Great to see you, though. Portland, Kyle Garcia from Portland. I knew that.
The 90s are alive and well in Portland.
Great to see you here. Rahil from Barcelona via LinkedIn. Hello. Shinto via LinkedIn. Let us know where you're tuned in from. Great to have you here. Hey, Joey's back from Minnesota. Great to see you via LinkedIn, Joey. I've really enjoyed your sense of humor and contributions. Man, we got a full house today. James Walker from Sierra Leone. So excited to be part of this thrilling session. Greg, have you ever been accused of being thrilling?
Never.
James.
I've been accused of a lot of things, but never thrilling.
James, looking forward to hearing from you as we work through our topics here today. Okay. Well, Greg, with no further ado, I want to jump into the first topic. How's that sound?
Yeah, that sounds great. I've been doing a little research while we've been greeting everyone here, so hopefully
that is good.
Get the camera to focus on it. I'll show everybody.
You can do about 9 things at once. I've always been very impressed. But hey, today I want to start with
excel at mediocrity, Scott. That's
I want to start today's discussion with a trend that, Greg, we've been talking about for quite some time, right? More freight coming into East Coast ports here in the U.S. So as reported here by CNBC, shippers continue to shift freight to the East Coast and away from the West Coast for a variety of reasons, but chief amongst them are labor concerns. Of course, with the shift in freight patterns come new challenges. In Savannah, for instance, which is just down the road from Greg, waiting times are up from 1 day in May to 13 days plus presently. How about that? And Greg, get this. Due to automation and other factors, a container ship in China will be offloaded in less than a day. But here in the U.S., ports can take 4 to 6 days. And of course, automation is a hot topic in the ports right this moment. But Greg, your take on these freight patterns?
Let's see if I can give everybody a visual on.
Nice.
Sorry for that is what it looks like. The green little dots, those are ships. The red ones are oil tankers, and the kind of pink ones, those are yachts. So those people are having fun. But notice there are a lot more people waiting for 13 days than having fun. So just to give you an idea, that is what it looks like out there off of the coast of Georgia and South Carolina. So it's been a challenge, right? As more and more ships have moved to Houston and Jacksonville and Savannah and Charleston, and I think even to the New York and New Jersey ports.
Right.
It's become a challenge for everyone. And then a report we got from Savannah some time back was that they had a lift down, one of their entire areas, I think, where they offload ships had gone down. So that had really slowed them and started this back up. It went from kind of maybe 3 to 5 ships to that's about 37 ships waiting offshore of Savannah right now. So over the horizon, so they don't bother anyone's view on the beach, but they are out there, and you can see the lights at night for sure.
Waiting. Well, it'll be interesting to see moving forward in weeks and months ahead to see how the East Coast and the East Coast ports continue to make adjustments because they're happy. They want to keep winning more and more freight, right? But growth always
backups aren't going to help them do that. I mean, right? We can't solve one set of backups with a whole bunch of others, and I think the California ports are Long Beach and LA. They're starting to come back around, right? So,
excellent point.
Maybe what we start to do is spread out the deliveries across the states. Now, it's best to be able to provision for that because you also want your chassis inland and the ability to get to inland ports to consolidate and deconsolidate and all of that. So. There's probably some change to come, but this may be a good thing that has us kind of smear demand across more ports.
Right. Yeah. We'll keep our finger on the pulse as things continue to evolve in the macro and micro, or maybe vice versa, but what have you.
And I think hopefully we rise to the challenge of being able to offload these ships much, much more quickly. Right. We use a ton of labor to do it today. Labor in that particular area of the supply chain is very difficult to come by. I actually commented on an article today about that.
And gosh, labor, whether it's ports or fulfillment centers across global supply chain, maybe global business. Transportation. It's all a challenging time right now. But I want to shift gears. No pun intended, although it would be very apropos. So, Greg, bringing this back into picture. And by the way, that's it. Despite some of the challenges we're going to talk about, that's a good looking truck.
It is a good looking ride, isn't it? Yeah.
So, Greg, a lot of folks enjoyed one. So you do a supply chain summary commentary Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays on LinkedIn. And man, what you dropped last week, I think it was last Wednesday, on what's going on at Rivian, caught a lot of folks' eye. A lot of comments, a lot of views, you name it. So for the sake of time today, give us a Reader's Digest version of your take here.
Well, the Reader's Digest version is that $11 billion were invested in Rivian before it went public, and its valuation is $28 billion, which is about 3/5 of the valuation of Ford. And they've produced 9,000 vehicles.
Wow.
So that is the Reader's Digest. And for those of you not born in 1950, that means a very condensed version of the story.
I got to update my analogies, don't I, Greg?
But what is there? I mean, even you could say the USA Today version, which was like 3 bullet points, even that's gone. So how do you condense things these days? The Twitter version, that's a little bit too condensed and too angry.
Yes. But, Rivian continues, the supply chain issues that they and many others are facing continue to persist. And, Greg, we're both based. I've got roots at least in Georgia,
Right.
and here it hits home because Rivian and the state of Georgia have a deal in place. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly where it stands today, but a $5 billion plant to open near Covington, Georgia, which was set to create some 7,500 jobs. And as you and I have chatted about, there's a good bit of local opposition in terms of where they're going to put that plant and how.
I did not know that. Is that right?
In fact, if I'm not mistaken, last week could have been a week before last week, but there's, as you might imagine, there's lots of lawsuits percolating, and one judge at least paused some of the actions as he or she was hearing some of the complaints of some of the local contingents. So hey, rarely do you get everybody 100% support of a lot of these developments, but anything else you want to add about Rivian, the valuation, the operational issues, you name it? I mean, what's your thoughts? You think the plants, we're going to see that in the next couple of years? Is it going to come to fruition?
Well, they announced some layoffs recently, about 6% of their sales force. I think they announced that over the weekend. But just since that article last Monday, their market cap is up, please hold, approximately $4 billion, which would just about pay for that plant if people want the work in Georgia. So, I think it's a very fluid situation. Look, the point of that article really was we keep throwing money at companies that don't seem to have their act together. And I mean, this is a company that had a configurator on their website that, for instance, allowed you to customize the vehicle. And this is really what got my ire up. It allowed you to customize the vehicle, but it didn't limit the customizations based on what they could actually deliver. You could actually order a car, have 10 customizations, and 9 of them could not have been provided, yet they still showed them to you. And that seemed like a big miss to me for any level of company, but certainly for one that had $11 billion in capital before they were even public. So
wow.
I think that as much of the story is that we need to help these visionaries, who are usually the people that start companies like Rivian, to have some greater operational gifts. And I think investors like Ford need to get more involved. They could have said, hey, we stopped mass customization in the 70s, by the way. But if you do have customization, at least make sure you have the stuff on hand that people are ordering.
Right. So. That always reminds me of that rumored response that Henry Ford gave way back in the day when he was being asked, what color can we get our Model T in? Anything you want.
Color.
As long as it's black.
As long as it's black. Right.
Color of the Model T.
Right. And let's think about what an innovation the horseless carriage was. What did people want? I mean, this is what visionaries do, though, right?
Right.
What did people ask Henry Ford for?
Right?
A faster horse, right? What he did was he tucked a bunch of horsepower into this little metal thing and then put it in a cart. And there it came, the horseless carriage with 25 horsepower. Right.
Well, Greg, I am so proud of you. As Shelley says, you did give us the TikTok version of the Rivian story.
TikTok could do it. Yes,
absolutely. And folks,
you need to be a TikTok star.
No. As our team, I want to give y'all, make sure everyone knows, we dropped the link to Greg's fuller take on Rivian in the comments. His LinkedIn, that's where you'll find his supply chain summaries every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We'd love for y'all to jump on there and give us your take in particular. You'll see a lot of takes and observations on the Rivian story. By the way, hello, Byron. Great to see you here. Great to have you back. Enjoy your contributions, especially last week with Mike Griswold and Gartner. You had some elegant takes on Bill Russell as we were looking back on his legendary career and journey. And Josh, we'll put this out to folks. Josh says, have a question for the semi and train rail folks. Have there been any major infrastructure updates to support the increase of flow from east to west? So we'll see. I think he's talking about the flow of the freight from the east ports out to all points west rather than the flow of the freight patterns, if going from calling on West Coast ports to East Coast ports. So it's a great question. Put that out there, and we'd welcome everyone's observations. Okay, I want to give a quick signal, Greg. We're going to have a couple of bonus minutes with our guests today. We got through both of those stories. Greg, I had you allocated for about 25 minutes on the Rivian story. And we got through it so efficiently.
I got more to say if you want to.
Well, I'll tell you what. I want to encourage people.
I think we've covered the top points.
Yes, that's right. And again, I want to encourage people to have your say. Bring your voice. Drop it on that LinkedIn post, and we'd love to get your take. Maybe next week we can review some of those responses. We got a lot of sharp people. I think we got the sharpest audience in the world here at Supply Chain Now. Okay, so Greg, are we ready to bring in our guest today? I'm excited to talk with Keith. Are you ready to go, Greg?
Yeah, let's do it.
Do it. All right. Yeah. So formally, I want to welcome in Keith Andrey, president of UPS U.S. Operations and Freight Forwarding. Hey, Keith, how we doing?
Good. How are you doing there, Scott? Greg?
Doing wonderful. Great to see you.
Welcome aboard.
Enjoyed. I didn't get a chance to enjoy one of the pre-show conversations as much. Had a little digital connection problems, but Greg, we found out a couple things about Keith in the pre-show here today, including something that we can touch on about y'all's mutual love for motorcycles, huh?
Yeah, and he's got a pretty sweet ride. I was not familiar with the Triumph 3, but that is a beautiful bike. A buddy of mine had, I think, the precursor to that bike, and wow, what a beautiful ride that is.
I'm so jealous.
So sorry. So Keith is a motorcycle enthusiast. Right?
And Keith was describing his weekend exploits. And Keith, you got some riding in that last weekend, right?
Yeah, I did. So went up to the Georgia mountains. So I have a Triumph Rocket 3R Black, the second generation. So a little lighter than the old one, a lot faster, very enjoyable ride.
Man, I'm jealous, Keith. And it was a gorgeous, a little bit, I would say, my wife, I think Amanda might disagree with me. Saturday morning, at least, we got a little brief respite, if I said that right, from the humidity. It was a little less humid, at least where we were in Athens at the farmer's market. So, Keith, I bet it was a gorgeous day to ride.
Yeah, fantastic up in northern Georgia when it's not raining and it's not 100 degrees. So it was a fun time.
So, because you are sitting on a heater when you're going. Right?
Yeah, that's 2,500 cc's in that motorcycle, so it puts out a lot of heat. So.
Man, all right. Well, one other thing before we start to talk air cargo and other things with you here today, Keith. One other fun question I want to pose to you because it's Elvis week. It's Elvis week around the globe. He has a full week dedicated to his legendary status. So two-part question here. Keith, have you seen the big movie that's winning accolades from around the world, Focus on Elvis? And secondly, your favorite Elvis tune. So Keith?
The answer is no, I've not seen the movie, but I'm more of a Led Zeppelin fan than I am Elvis fan. So now that aside,
they dress a little like Elvis on certain tours.
It's in Scott. I'm waiting for that week. I'm waiting for the Led Zeppelin week.
Led Zeppelin week.
I'll be all over that. I think I do have a couple of songs in my library. I think Heartbreak Hotel.
Yeah.
In the Ghetto. Jailhouse Rock, and I think Are You Lonesome Tonight? I think
those are great ones.
So,
do you sing those, Keith? Do you any chance we'll get you to sing one today?
And you'll lose all your attendees of the call. So that'll be it for Supply Chain Now.
It'll all be just Supply Chain then, huh? All right. So Greg, I tell you, he had a nice collection of tunes, and I bet we could have a full Led Zepp conversation with Keith. But Greg, have you seen the movie, and what's your favorite tune?
Have seen the movie. Austin Butler, I think is his name. Absolute genius. I mean, I actually have seen so many of the videos. My mother was a huge Elvis fan, and I've seen so many of the videos of him performing in Vegas and elsewhere. And I mean, there was a scene in the movie where I had to do a double take and go, is that actually Elvis, or is that the actor doing it? I mean, it was that good. And also, if you didn't hate Colonel Parker, complete scam artist, by the way, if you didn't hate him before, you definitely will after this movie, and the hatred is well earned. So my favorite Elvis song is A Little Less Conversation, a little more
that's
action.
a good one. That's a good one. That's a great one, Greg. All right, let me hit a couple quick comments, and then Keith, we're going to dive in. Me and Greg are going to dive in with you on air cargo and a couple of things going on across global business. Manjunatea, I believe, is how we pronounce that. If I got it wrong, I apologize. Let us know when we get everybody's names right. Says cargo exports, supply chain management booming right now. Trade is certainly booming across the supply chain world. Kyle, thank you. Appreciate that. Always, you're too kind, Kyle, too kind. And Sayantan, thanks for giving me an opportunity to participate as a viewer. Hey, we want to hear from you. Be more than a viewer. Love for you to weigh in on what you hear today and give us your take. Speaking of Greg and Keith, speaking of takes, I want to get into one of your areas of expertise, Keith, air cargo, right? Air cargo world has been really experiencing quite a market the last couple of years. And I want to lay out a couple of quick facts to share with folks as we kind of table set a bit. 66 million metric tons being shipped through the air in 2021. That number is expected to crest over 69 million metric tons in 2022. But Keith, for some of our listeners, and we'll get to this article in just a second, for some of our listeners, they may not have as much direct experience working air cargo. I told you and Greg pre-show, all of my little bit of experience came in the Air Force and the military, right? Loading refuelers where they carry some of the cargo, not in the belly, but in wherever they call the passenger section. Cabin. Thank you, Greg. Technical term there. But Keith, what's one thing that might surprise folks that don't know as much about the air cargo world?
Yeah, I think the first thing I can think of is the third parties. There are more third parties executing the move on behalf of the forwarder and the airline. And as a result of that, there's third parties who give things to other third parties, who give things to other third parties. And I think most people think it's just the forwarder and the airline. And it's not. It's the forwarder, the airline, and all the airline partners, and all the forwarder partners that make up a very, very complicated supply chain. So I think that's one of the things people don't realize. And even when customers were concerned about what was happening during COVID, where you had CFS operations that were understaffed, and they would say, hey, just change the airline. But the problem is both airlines are sharing the same CFS, operator in the whatever airport that is. So I think it's that education is probably something that's not well understood. And that's been happening over the last decade. When you made the reference to the Air Force back when you were in it was doing everything soup to nuts. But over time, even the military, as well as in forwarding and in the airlines, that's all gone to components of it being more and more outsourced.
Interesting.
So
interesting. Greg, some of what I heard there from Keith, I learned a couple new things there just in the last couple minutes. But everywhere you turn, complexity. Greg, we can't get a break, can we?
Yeah, I'm curious. Is that, this is more question than answer, Keith. That complexity, is that legacy process, or is that completely necessary? Is there a way to streamline that in some way?
Yeah, I think when the supply chains were more stable, the idea of reducing costs by sharing non-mission critical components of your business was very, very popular. But once the supply chain was tested and unemployment got tighter and finding people to do the job, and you had COVID, that exposed a lot of challenges within the airline industry. So just the sheer amount of cancellations, additions, short notice additions to the schedules stressed those groups pretty significantly. And in that example that I used, you have one third party, but the problem is universal to 3, 4, 5 different airlines. And that complexity of it, I think, is legacy to efficiency. And that impacted once the supply chain became more volatile and less predictable.
If that's your last phrase there, volatility and unpredictability, goodness gracious, we've been living it and breathing it. All right. But hey, folks, Greg and Keith, and to all of our dear listeners and viewers, there's some good news. And I want to bring up this article here from Air Cargo News. So according to Air Cargo News, a survey of industry practitioners and the Air Forwarders Association members say that 2023 is looking like a great year. Well, at least the first half of 2023. So hopefully, Keith, we're getting, maybe being able to take a breath second half of this year, maybe moving into next year. Your thoughts on what this survey is projecting?
Yeah, I tend to be a little bit more pessimistic, I think, than the article. I think historically, whenever there's been an increase of inflation, you've really seen a reduction in spending and a reduction in associated demand. I think the wild card, though, is you have low unemployment, you have accumulated spending power of the consumer due to COVID. So there's a lot of wild cards that change that equation a little bit. But historically, when you've seen rise of inflation, there was always a period of spending and less demand during that time period. So I'm expecting, my own view, end of 2023 is probably more realistic, maybe early 2024, that you'll really see some strong recovery from where we're at.
Okay. It's good. It's good, Greg, to have be conservative and a bit pessimistic about about any economic or industry projection. Your thoughts, Greg?
Well, Keith has nothing to gain by overshooting, right? I mean, truthfully, he's doing it. He's doing it day to day, right? Whereas, you look at things like the Air Forwarders Association, kind of like the real estate associations. Of course, they're optimistic because they're hopeful, right? They're hopeful for their constituency. They're hopeful for their members, and they try to believe beyond belief that everything will continue to go up. And there are all kinds of indicators to the alternative, and of course, Keith every day. So I think it's great to be able to have these perspectives, not just from associations and government agencies and things like that, but from the people who are actually living it every day. I wonder if there's anybody in the air freight industry out there on the show today that could give us their take on it. It'd be really interesting to hear that, wouldn't it, guys?
Great call out. Folks, let us know what you're seeing, especially when it comes to air cargo. And if you want to be bold and offer up a projection for the next couple of years, that would be wonderful. I think we dropped the link to the Air Cargo News article in the comments, so folks, y'all can check that out on your own. Hey, Keith, before we move over to this notion of friendshoring, any final thoughts with what of this interesting, unique time we've been going through as a global supply chain, maybe specifically about air cargo or where we're headed? Any final thoughts, Keith?
Yeah, sure. I think I'll talk, and Greg can probably weigh into this too, but the forwarders tend to do really well when there's supply chain disruption. That's when the value of the forwarder really shines, and it's where the customers value who they're dealing with the most. And then, so if you look at the results of a lot of the freight forwarders coming in right now, they've all been really, really well during this period of time. And that's a move to value during a crisis. And that's where, we do well. When it's very sustainable and consistent and predictable, that's when the procurement side of the organizations we do business with kick in, and that's when the dollars start getting squeezed out of the supply chain. So right now it's like, hey, do whatever it takes to get my product on the shelf, or do whatever it takes to get the raw material to the factory. That's going to shift when demand shifts, and it's going to go back to, hey, let's have the most efficient, predictable supply chain we can have. And that evolution is going to happen like it has for the last, 4 or 5 decades. So we're going to see that. But I think, during as more volatility it is, the forwarders tend to do better. And, once that gets to be normalized, then that's when it tightens up and that shifts.
Well said. Well said.
Yep.
Appreciate that clarification, those thoughts. Greg, your final thoughts here?
Yeah, well, it's coming, isn't it? I just recently read an article that said, okay, this is not a leading indicator or anything, but it is indicative.
Right.
Chipotle is seeing more wealthy people buying food at Chipotle as they eschew going to luxury restaurants and go instead to Chipotle. And they're seeing more of their mid level folks, right, kind of fall out of buying Chipotle, maybe cooking at home, or God forbid, Taco Bell. But we're starting to see those shifts. I'm curious. I mean, I don't know what you guys are seeing, but I'm pulling back big time. And I think a lot of people are.
Let me. So I've never been confused for an economist, and Keith, you should know that too, because Greg already knows that. But I mentioned the farmers market. We went to a different farmer. Usually you can find us in Monroe, beautiful downtown Monroe, at the farmers market. Went to a different one over the weekend, and the very first thing that got my attention from the breakfast biscuit I got one of my kids to perusing all the prices across the board, the prices, and a lot of times these farmers market you can get bargains galore. But that was across the board. And Greg, that probably parallels nicely with what you just shared. And Keith, whether we like it or not, challenging pricing environment out there, huh?
Yeah, definitely. I think in my own experience, in my own household, my partner is out in the back doing the farm routine. And, so those are going to be 20 less squash he's not going to buy at the market, right? So, I mean, that,
yeah,
so
love it.
It's all going on everywhere.
Man,
so
Keith, we got to work a little deal, a little squash supply chain.
She'll like that. So there might be a bucket coming your way because it's a big plot of land out there. So
awesome. Well, hey, really enjoying the conversation. We're going to take a little bit of a right turn here in just a moment. But Greg and Keith, y'all make quite a nice 1-2 punch. Maybe we can tee up the next episode. It'd be like the supply chain version of chips, and we have both of y'all on your motorcycles talking supply chain. We'll see if the production team can. Keith, would you be game for that?
I sure would. Yeah,
do you want to be Eric Estrada or I forget? I only know the characters' name.
Ponch and John.
Ponch and John, right?
You
want to be Ponch or John?
I think I'm probably more Ponch like. So
okay.
John is actually the more reasonable guy, if I remember.
Oh man, that means I have to be the reasonable one. Okay.
All right, we can reverse it.
All right, so coming to
it'll be a good live
stream near you. The supply chain version of chips. Going mobile. Okay. And Rahil, we'll see if we can't get to your question here in a moment. But first, we want to tackle this this notion that we heard about here in the last few weeks. Friendshoring. So as we were talking pre-show, that name sounds a bit hokey, but the concept behind it is something that I bet a lot of folks can get around. So this term friendshoring was used in a mid-July speech in South Korea made by U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. Basically, it's a play on onshoring, nearshoring, but calls for supply chain collaboration really focused on allied countries, right? Friends. So Keith, this notion of friendshoring, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, friendshoring, nearshoring, offshoring, reshoring, I think the end, once you take the politics out of it, it's the same for the buyer. Buyer's looking for a predictable supply chain at the lowest cost. And so every one of those terms has happened. Even global, going offshore has been an issue of trying to look for stability in the supply chain at the lowest cost in order to attest the increase of cost of the product sitting on the shelves. And so the names are always dressed up a little bit for politic reasons, but the reality is kind of the same in all those efforts. Every good buyer, every good supply chain manager is looking for ways to get stability and get lower costs in their supply chain. And that can be anywhere in the world.
Yep.
And that's why that quest has always been there. It's been there for at least the last 20 years. And I think that's going to kind of continue. I do think it's a good warning that, policies are going to start getting harder with nations that don't exactly follow the same path that we want to follow. And as a result of that, once you had it start with the prior administration, it's being continued with this administration. That means
Right.
it becomes a policy that transcends politics around party affiliation. And that's a warning that we have to, as supply chain managers, we have to be able to adjust to new sourcing patterns and new changes within the supply chain that are coming. And I actually think it was a good warning. I'm with you, near sourcing, whatever you want to call it, friend sourcing. But it's a shift to say to us in supply chain, hey, for the long term, you better start planning for change from where you've historically sourced from. And that's kind of how we're taking it. So,
Keith and Greg, coming to you next, we'll get your thoughts here. But, we've seen in recent years more and more, countries probably since the beginning of time have leveraged, I won't say weaponized raw goods and global supply chains, but man, we sure are seeing a lot more of that in recent years, some with national security implications for sure. But Greg, your thoughts on this notion of friendshoring and what Keith just shared there?
Keith might want to turn his camera off so he doesn't make a reaction that's going to get him in trouble with the bosses. Are you kidding me? Of course, people started with friendshoring. This is, to echo what Keith said, it's a signal of a policy change. Nobody went first to the Russians and Chinese and said, hey, you despots, you want to make this stuff for us? Of course, we exhausted the capacity of every one of our allies before we went to the enemy, frankly. So I think it's, it's political grandstanding. It's popular speak. It's a way to seem relevant, but no one chose China because for any reason other than price, and because capacity literally cannot be accumulated among dozens of other countries. And at the time that everyone went to China, India's infrastructure was even less established than it is now. So we couldn't really go to anyone who was remotely friendly. So I think what we have to understand here is this is a lot of politics. It is policy signaling, and it's good that Keith and others hear that so that they can respond to that. But this isn't news to anyone, and it's cute and Pollyannish and all of that, but it's unattainable. I mean, if it were attainable, we'd already be doing it, right? So, we know the BRIC countries are not the ideal business partners, but what choice do we have at this point? So, I think it's great to talk about. My concern is that the policy does more damage than good, because policy often means things like tariffs and whatever else. But my concern is that it could really do more harm than good. And when it anyway, we don't know what direction policy is going to take, but we know that it's going to be incomplete whenever produced by politicians, and that there will be a slew of unintended consequences coming out of it. So watch your back, Keith. That's what I'm going to say.
Well, great take. And as always, Greg does not, he tells it like it is. I appreciate that, Greg. And Keith, I appreciate your perspective as well. We're talking about this notion of friendshoring that Secretary Yellen included in a speech. Gary says friendshoring is becoming more important, especially as U.S.-China relations develop. And that's putting it kindly, Gary.
Yeah, I think you meant to type devolve there, not develop.
Right. No kidding.
But, I mean, there are lots of ways we could, I would consider the U.S. a friend to the U.S. Wouldn't you, Scott?
Yeah, absolutely.
And yet we're overseas begging one of the most despotic, despicable, and dangerous dictatorships on the planet for oil. So, and at the same time, by the way, I love the irony of this. At the same time, we're decrying the move of a few golfers from the PGA to this Saudi Arabian tour as well, right? So
we'll have to cover that.
I dig the irony of politics, man.
Right. Golf, Gosh, very interesting. We'll have to save that for another show. But Keith, I want to circle back, moving on to a couple resources that we've got. And by the way, Nazrin, I meant to say hello, greetings. Great to have you back. I think you joined us for a live stream not too long ago from Iran via LinkedIn. Great to have you here today. Look forward to your perspective. Couple of resources that I want to make sure that we got from the UPS team. We want to put out there. And Keith, we'll have a couple of final questions and observations for you. But first off, I want to share this UPS supply chain insights that we've got. I want to invite our listeners to check out this resource center, events, offers, perspectives, actionable perspectives. Check this out. You can subscribe. You can check it out. You can also opt into the emails, which offers a lot of these delivered on time and in full to your email inbox every morning. So Keith, you and your team work overdrive beyond the, you like that, Greg?
I love on time in full.
Oh, good old OTIF. Beyond
the real on time in full.
Yes. Not this late Johnny come lately version. But Keith, your team works overdrive beyond your core services that you offer and creating these other value added ways to, better inform your customers and buyers and the whole 9 yards. That's really an important aspect of y'all's approach to business, huh?
Yeah, I think, we're over the last 20 years, we've kind of built this really comprehensive portfolio of products, and we're best when we bundle the two together. So really good brokerage connectivity with transportation provides a really good service for the customers. There's other ones too. Preferred LCL is another example where we take LCL into the country, and then we do my domestic air freight operation, picks it up at the port, and then accelerates the final mile. So, one of the comments was East Coast to West Coast.
Right.
There's a solution. If you get it out of the hands of the rail and get it out of the hands of trucking and put it into the domestic air freight business market that we have, and then it moves as a priority 3 days from the port out to a point in the U.S. So we like to bundle those services together. Obviously it's an advantage for us because we have this portfolio to do that.
Right.
But we're moving more and more into trying to look for opportunities to take the parts of the good of the whole, combine it together and build something better for customers on a solution by solution basis. And I think that's where we're at, especially when it's volatile.
Yep.
And unpredictable. You have to come up with those kind of new opportunity solutions for customers. So,
Keith, I'm glad you shared that because Greg, as sometimes I have a habit of doing, I jumped over a couple of questions I had for Keith. And one of them was better understanding what UPS does when it comes to the freight forwarding space. And Keith, you were just speaking to that a bit. Goodness, when we were sitting here talking with Keith, quite an SME and a guru here when it comes to getting stuff where it needs to be. But Keith, what else would you add? Folks that may be new to that aspect of UPS, there's not too many folks that are new to UPS, but that component of what you do, what else would you add to that, Keith?
Yeah, I mean, we continually invest in industry segments. We just announced this morning we're purchasing a company in Europe, BAMI, I think it is international, and the BAMI Group, and that is for our healthcare logistics build out that we've been doing over the last couple of years within our products or within our company. That's an additional access 14 countries, 350 vehicles, 3,000 employees that we're going to be adding in really to support healthcare and specific healthcare supply chain logistics. So you're going to see more of that from us going forward. How do we build out really important industry segments as we really want to move what matters to our customers. That becomes areas like healthcare and some of the other businesses we do that support that. And so those are areas we're going to be investing in going forward as a company.
Keith, congrats. Congrats on the deal this morning. You're talking Greg's language when it comes to that for sure. And Greg, we were part of a fascinating, speaking of healthcare discussion with the UPS team as they were kind of in the thick of the noble mission of getting the the
Vaccine out.
yeah, thank you. Vaccine out globally. That was a really neat conversation. But Greg, what else, based on what Keith shared there and kind of where the UPS team's going, what they're investing in, or what they do when it comes to freight forwarding, your thoughts, Greg?
Yeah, well, I mean, that is a great awakening, because I honestly hadn't really thought of transferring it to an aircraft. I know that sounds dumb. I don't do this every day, Keith. You might not have noticed that, but it makes perfect sense. If you need to get it from east to west, and you need to do so rapidly, instead of putting it on a truck, put it on an aircraft. I'm curious, Keith. How are you fixed for airports near the Georgia inland port, or do you guys use that port?
Yeah. So what we'll do is, we bring it in LCL container. We'll break it down, split out the standard LCL from the preferred LCL. The preferred LCL will get recovered, brought into the closest hub we have, and then from there it'll be entered into our air freight network. Some of it rides in the air, some of it will ride in a dedicated truck system we have for our deferred product. And that's kind of how the product moves within our network itself. So it's, our air freight or our deferred network, which is like a 3-day network, rides on the road. So the majority of it will end up there. Every once in a while, we'll actually put it on a plane itself. So
interesting. Very cool.
We're going to get a tour of some of these facilities, especially related to air cargo, Keith. We'll have to make that happen at a later date. But
I got a tour of a couple of parcel facilities when some buddies of mine in college were working there and making a bundle, by the way. I mean, tough hours, Keith. I'm sure you've seen it, if not done it. It's hard work, but man, and this was frankly in the 80s, and the efficiency for the time frame was incredible. So it's amazing what these facilities can do these days.
Yeah, I think Hub World Port is a fantastic opportunity to see it. It's, the planes start lining up at 10, 11 o'clock at night, and they all land and take off by 3. It's a crazy period of 5 hours worth seeing if you get an opportunity to see how freight moves in and out.
Got to be a YouTube channel for it, don't you think?
There's probably something you could search and find in there.
Don't you think? I mean, there's got to be. There's one for everything. Yeah.
Supply Chain Symphony, undoubtedly. Supply Chain Symphony. Folks, we did drop the links to the resources that me and Keith touched on earlier. UPS Supply Chain News and Insights. Y'all check that out. And we also dropped for the email subscription. You want to sign up to that, so it's delivered to your inbox. Odif. All right. So, Keith, as we start to wrap up your time here today, really enjoyed it. We kind of had a broad conversation from air cargo, of course, to international policy making and trade, and even a little touch of the economic conditions. But if folks want to get involved in the squash supply chain, since that's also an area that you're getting into, kidding aside, if folks want to compare notes with you, connect with your team, how would you suggest that happens?
Yeah, I think the best thing to do is probably hit my LinkedIn. Is the best way to do it. They want to connect, and then there's a group that's on there that shares regularly. Obviously, looking for content, not a lot of sales pitch, but we'll weave through that when it happens. But that's one way to reach out, connect, and then start there. So
that you said it very nicely, Keith. You said it really nicely, Greg. Give us the straight. If you're trying to sell something, don't send one of those LinkedIn emails. Is that right, Greg?
Right in the garbage.
Right in the garbage. That's right. But Keith, I'm sure, and his team, clearly well connected, making it happen every day, do welcome industry conversations, I imagine. Okay, Keith, had a pleasure chatting with you today. Me and Greg had a blast.
Yeah, great.
One final question, and then we're gonna bid you adieu. What's the next as you break your bike out? Because it's it'll be nice, crisp. I'm wishful thinking, but it's gonna be nice, crisp, early fall weather soon. Very wishful thinking. What's one of the next trips you've got for the bike thinking
Well,
about?
unfortunately, the bike can go for 8 hours, but me on the bike can only go for about 2 hours. So if you plowed up the distance from my house to the closest drinking establishment with 2 hours out, that's about as far as that radius goes. Around that. So.
Keeping it home in the backyard. I love that, Keith.
Really good barbecue in a 2 hour, right? Or whatever. Yeah.
Barbecue, farmer's market, and a quick adult beverage, and call it a day. Keith. Well, Keith, always a pleasure. We look forward to having you back. We enjoyed talking with a lot of members of the UPS team just about on a monthly basis here at Supply Chain Now. But big thanks to Keith Andrey, president of UPS U.S. Operations and Freight Forwarding. Keith, we'll see you again soon.
Yeah,
thanks guys. Thanks, Greg, Scott.
You bet. All right, Greg. Man, it was certainly a wide-ranging conversation with Keith. I think he could weigh in and inform us on a wide variety of topics, huh?
Well, he's doing the doing, not just for UPS, but think about how many companies UPS interacts with. So yeah, of course he sees what's operating every day, and clearly is keeping it. As president, is keeping abreast of what's going on in the macro environment, in the political environment, in the international environment that can impact that. I think that's really important. Look, I think we as supply chain practitioners globally have become aware of all these influences because of one predominant influence and the subsequent shock and aftershocks that have been placed on the supply chain. And now we have this incredible visibility. We cannot hide anymore, right?
That's right.
I think we may have gotten a little more visibility than we were ready for really, really fast. But look, people in supply chain are resilient, and Keith shows that. He's got a broad range perspective, but he's getting done every single day as well. So
well said, Greg. Stephen, yes, the replay will be available across social in just an hour or two, and then we'll drop the podcast, the audio replay on our global podcast RSS feed. So, Stephen, you will be able to engage in the full conversation there for sure.
And you can ask the questions. If you do it in LinkedIn, you can ask the questions in the commentary for the video, right? So
well said.
Or on YouTube. Yeah.
And Stephen, since you're asking, you may have missed the resources. So check out the links in the chat. We mainly focused on, let's see, I'm gonna get this name right. It's UPS Supply Chain Insights. So it's a broad range of different resources to help keep customers and prospective customers alike informed and in the know. Okay, so Greg, always a pleasure. Keith hit a home run like we knew he would here today. I've enjoyed his perspective and him weighing in on things.
Yeah.
Enjoy having these conversations with you. We should say big thanks to the production team, Amanda, Clay, Chantel, Catherine, you name it. They all help us make today's show and shows like today happen. Big thanks to everyone that showed up in the comments. Big thanks to our guest, Keith and Natalie and the whole UPS team. Greg, but if our listeners take anything away, hey, it's time to act. Deeds, not words. Act on the information you heard Keith drop here and all the folks in the comments. On behalf of our entire team, Scott Luton signing off for now, challenging you, all of our listeners, to do good, to give forward, and to be the change. And with that said, we'll see you next time right back here at Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.